Okay, this is show you know from 6.4. These are the how to multiply two mixed fractions using a model. So the first question is, what is 1 3/4 multiplied by 1 3/4? So obviously, if I was given that question, 1 3/4 multiplied by 1 3/4, my first instinct would be simply to multiply 1 by 1 and then multiply 3/4 by 3/4 and add them together. The problem with that is it's completely wrong. That's how you would add mixed fractions together, but it does not work with multiplication of mixed fractions, and here's why. The way they want to explain it to you, the easiest way for them to explain it to you is to take an area of a shape. In this case, a rectangle or a square or whatever. And if I was to say the length was 3 and the width was 4, and I was to say, okay, this is 1 meter, 1 meter. So this is 1 meter here, this is 1 meter here, this is 1 meter here. The length of that is 3. The width of this is 4, so 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Uh-oh, 1, 3. It's awful. There we go. So if I looked at this, what you would realize is that instead of saying 3, you could have really said 1, 1, and 1. And instead of saying 4, you could have said 1, 1, 1, and 1. And multiplying 3 by 4 gives you 12 units. So 1 times 1 is 1. All of these would be areas of 1. And 3 times 4 would be 12 units squared, is what we would say when we did area. But instead of using whole numbers, we can apply that same principle to multiplying fractions. So in this case, instead of having 3, I can have this distance here is 1 meter, or whatever, and this remaining distance is 3/4 of a meter. So we're going to have 1 3/4 as the length of this rectangle, and we're going to have 1 3/4 as the width of the rectangle. And we could see that 1 3/4 multiplied by 1 3/4 is going to be the same thing as this area A plus this area B plus this area C plus this area D. So really, it's going to be equal to A plus B plus C plus D. All 4 of those areas should be the same area as 1 3/4 multiplied by 1 3/4. So how do we do that? Well, we take our marker and we figure out what is the area of 1. Well, the length of A is 1, the width is 1. So A is really just a 1 by 1, which is 1 as an area. B has a width of 3/4 and a length of 1, so it's 1 multiplied by 3/4. And anything multiplied by 3/4 is itself, so its area would be 3/4. C, we have a width of 3/4 and a length of 1, so its length and width is going to be 1 times 3/4. And again, just like the last one, anything multiplied by by 1 is itself, so C's area will be 3/4. And finally, D is 3/4 multiplied by 3/4. I'll do it over here. 3/4 multiplied by 3/4, which we learned in the last section. When you multiply two fractions together, multiply your numerators, multiply your denominators, and you end up with 9/16 as its area. 9/16. So 1 3/4 times 1 3/4 should equal 1 plus 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 9/16. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the product of 1 3/4 multiplied by 1 3/4 will equal A plus B plus C plus D. Or 1 plus 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 9/16. So when we're adding those together, we got to go back to grade 7 and realize that when we add fractions together, we need common denominators. This 1 is a whole number, so I'm just going to bring it down here and use it at the end of my sum. And these 3, I'm going to find a common denominator for. In this case, 16 can be used as the common denominator. 9/16 will remain 9/16. 3/4 is equal to 12/16. So is the other 3/4, 12/16. And now that we have our common denominator, the rule is keep your denominator and add your numerators together. So you're going to get 33/16 as your answer for the sum of those 3 fractions. But 33/16 is an improper fraction. I'm going to change it to a mixed fraction of 2 and 1/16. So B, C, and D, we're going to add up to be 2 and 1/16. A is simply 1. So when I put those together, 1 plus 2 and 1/16, I get my final answer of 3 and 1/16. So because these videos are so labor intensive, these questions, I'm just going to skip B, and I'm going to go right on to C. And C says 1 1/4 multiplied by 1 1/3. So my rectangle is going to have a length of 1 1/4, and my width is going to have a length of 1, or a width of 1 1/3. So here we're going to have 4 parts again. We're going to have an A, a B, a C, and a D. And A plus B plus C plus D will be equal to 1 1/4 times 1 1/3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up as an A, and I'm going to say, what are the dimensions of A? Well, A is this part here, which is 1 by 1, which has an area of 1. So A is equal to 1. B is equal to 1 times 1/4, or simply 1/4. C, I guess these are all equal to, is equal to 1 times 1/3, which is equal to 1/3. And D is equal to 1/4 multiplied by 1/3. Okay? Which is going to be, since I know how to multiply, 1 times 1, which is 1, and 4 times 3, which is 12. So all 4 parts, oh, that's not right. All 4 parts. The area of 1 is, or A is 1. The area of B is 1/4. The area of C is 1/3. And the area of D is 12. So if I take those 4 numbers, oh, that's not right. Uh-oh, hello. If I take those 4 numbers and add them together, 1 plus 1/4 plus 1/3 plus 1/12, those 4 things added together will be equal to the product of 1 1/4 times 1 1/3. So the whole number will come down. I'm simply going to add a 1/4, a 1/3, and a 1/12, which will require a common denominator of 12. 1/12 doesn't change. 1/4 does. The equivalent fraction to 1/4 that has a denominator of 12 is 3. The equivalent fraction to 1/3 that has a denominator of 12 is 4. And now that we have our equivalent fractions, the rule says keep your denominator, add your numerators, and the answer will be 8/12. Don't forget we had the 1 here. So this part was 1. These parts added up to be 8/12. So when I put those together, I get 1 and 18, or 8/12 is my answer, which in lowest terms is 1 3/4. But given that the fact that all those area models work, the easiest way to do all these questions is simply to convert them from mixed to improper, and use the same procedure you did with regular fractions by multiplying the numerators and multiplying the denominators. So, with that said, the first question, without using an area model, 1 3/4 is 7/4, and 1 3/4 times 1 3/4 as improper fractions would be that. You multiply your numerators and multiply your denominators, you get 49/16, which is 3 times 16 is 48. You get the answer of 3 1/16 without drawing anything, and it's pretty darn easy. The second question, 1 1/4, is 5 quarters multiplied by 4 thirds. 5 quarters multiplied by 4 thirds. Now, a smart person here would remember that cross reduction works. And if I reduce that down to lowest terms, I go, that would be 5 over 3, which is equal to 1 and 2 thirds. But if you didn't cross reduce, you got, if you didn't cross reduce, let me do this again. You got 5 quarters multiplied by 4 thirds. You did 5 times 4 on the top and 4 times 3 in the bottom. You get 20 over 12, which is 1 and 8/12, which is 1. Oh, I think I had the wrong answer in the model. I did too. It's supposed to be divide by 4 and divide by 4. Oh yeah, I did. Which is 1 and 2 thirds, not 1 and 3 quarters. Oopsie daisy. Oh well, problem solved.